Hi, I'm Riley,
I am Evan,
and this is the Gray Line Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Grey Light podcast. I apologise for the delay on the release of this episode. There are a number of reasons that it got delayed, but we are here now, and we are talking today about Hollow Earth being a continuation from the conversation that we had about Hollow Moon. Now, for those who don't know what Hollow Earth is, Hollow Earth is a concept proposing that the planet Earth is entirely hollow or contains a substantial interior space. Now, there are a lot of different theories on this, and there are people that believe that they've found evidence of Hollow Earth, and there are also references in sort of ancient mythologies and legends that speak about underworlds and gates to the underworld. There's things from the ancient Greeks, the Celtic mythology, Hindu mythology. There's quite a lot that does speak about some sort of world underneath our feet. I'm going to pass it over to Riley for the most part today because unfortunately I have migraine and I will be a little bit quieter than usual. So please, Riley, take us away with Hollow Earth theory.
All right. Well, first off, yeah, this is like my favorite topic. I think like when I first ever heard of the Hollow Earth theory, I think it was like oh man, like 2010, maybe 2009. Like I wasn't really much into like the whole theory thing yet, and I think that was probably the first one I ever actually read up on. And to me, it was kind of like almost a fantasy. It's one of those things where you're just like, wow, that there's no way that this could be possible. But as you get going with a lot of the videos and stuff I was watching, it kind of got more and more intriguing to me. And honestly, to me, I wouldn't doubt that there would be something of this nature because, we're living in a universe full of odd things going on, and it makes a lot it kind of does make some sense. And for me, I think, when you look at the our geography of our earth and everything in that sense, there's a lot of different like geographical like areas, and a lot of people have talked about UFOs and stuff like that and portals, and this kind of goes on with what I feel about Hollow Earth, because Hollow Earth is basically underneath us, and a base like maybe it's a base, but the most theories about it is it's actual a big place with a city. There's like glowing fauna around and stuff like that, so you know it, there's a lot of things to it, and I believe that where the point of origins are for this place make a lot of sense. Now, um, I guess I'm not sure how long ago it was, but when they first discovered that there was this weird hole in the center of where the South Pole was, they obviously thought it was a glitch for when they were going by it, but obviously at that time they didn't have any actual satellite records of this, so they really couldn't pinpoint what was going on. And you know, for me, it's kind of like one of those things where it almost makes sense because a lot of the times we don't even have our own planes. If you're looking at a map, or if you get online looking at it where all the planes fly by and stuff, you'll never see an actual plane actually fly right over the South Pole. They always go around it. So there's obviously something to me that strikes me as odd about that. Why wouldn't they want to? But I also know that it can screw up with compasses and stuff like that too as well. So that maybe that's obviously another reason. But it just goes to a thing where I feel like there's more to it than a lot of people are letting on, and not a lot of it is out there because it's so closed off over there, and you basically going and investigating the South Pole is very a very dangerous risk you're taking basically.
Well, it's nearly impossible for anyone who's just a normal average interested investigator. It's not like any of us can just throw thousands of dollars at a ship and sail up there and take a crew and have a good old look at this.
Yes, true, and, like, that's the thing is there's only been, like, I think a few that have, and one of them being Edmund Haley at that time, but I think he only did a few expeditions there, but he was the first one to find out that there was some sort of hole or, like, a portal or something at that time, and obviously, with the technology we had back then, like, that it's amazing for him to even have a theory on that, and, um, and I think, the other one was, Pilot. I'm sure the last only I know his last name is Bird, but he flew over and he said that he saw a hole in the center of the South Pole, where our actual South Pole would be, and he said he could see vegetation, mammoths, walking around and stuff like that, so, you know, these 2 guys with the technology back then to be able to see this, it just makes me believe it more because I think, the eye, for me, seeing is believing. It's one of those things I've always said because I always believe that there's always something out there, and for me, for him to see that, that's belief enough, you know for me in that sense, and honestly, my whole life since I've seen this, I've always wanted to investigate and be able to go to these certain places, maybe not the South Pole, but there's also other places that people have actually met with beings, from Hollow Earth, and it was like a rock face, and they just walk through it. So there's so many different, places that, you know that you could go to this place, but for these 2 guys, they found the main one, and I think that's, a big thing on this whole theory is, um, what they found and brought back. Now, a lot of a lot of the story is that, he went down there and he saw some people and stuff like that and, communicated sort of thing, so, it just makes me think what is down there and who is down there, and are they actually the ones that are in control in this situation? And it also goes back with the whole hollow moon theory too, right? Like, you got that theory plus this, is it all connected? And that's why I like how we you kind of brought up the whole hollow moon and then to hollow earth.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely an intriguing topic, and there's a lot of information floating around out there about different myths and legends that also talk about, subterranean uh, brain frozen, not working, subterranean cavities where they have talk about like their hell, for instance. There's, I believe, a Celtic mythology. Uh, It's Ireland's Gates to Hell, I think it's called, and it's supposed
Yeah.
to be a
Yep.
mythical and ancient cave where strange creatures would emerge, and
Okay.
that kind of, I don't know, so the descriptions that I've seen for these strange creatures, it kind of reminds me of like what you would think of as a reptilian.
Yes. Yeah, true that. That's another thing too. And like you said, like if we have another species here, the best spot, even for a reptilian, would not be out in the middle of a sun so they can bake. They obviously are like a reptile in that sense, so they would love to be obviously underground, which I believe that's, a part of what's going on. And that's in that sense too, it's like, it's the whole area of Hollow Earth could be, broken up into many pieces, you know, and different civilizations have lived there many years. So, it makes sense that reptilians would have the first dibs on what's going on underneath our crust of our planet. But even then, um, like you said, I remember I saw a video a while ago. I think his name was Billy. Okay, and when I watched this video, I kind of at first was um, a little weirded out by it. But when I started actually listening to this guy's story and how he was talking about how he went to this place in Hollow Earth and they brought him through a portal sort of thing. My thing was is that Um, he said something about the blonde hair, blue eyes, you know, being
Palladian.
yes, yes, and like you said, sort of thing. It makes total sense if you wanted to hide away from a civilization of humans. The best place would be to be going underground. So that also brings up to the fact, like, even for a whole space of this for this to happen, you know, that's a huge, huge proportion of land underneath us. Now, which even then has a lot of islands and stuff, or continents, which it looks like. And I believe that, from what um uh Haley's was talking about, like, he obviously his description of it was a bunch of, different places, and it had different continents, and people were living there. So, in that sense right there, it could be anything, like anybody that's down there, in that sense.
Hmm. Also, thinking about the hollow earth theory in terms of like there potentially being some sort of race of beings down there. Um, the also with the descriptions, a lot of the ancient cultures refer to it as like a hell. So,
Yeah.
thinking about it from that perspective, I mean, could this be more something that's like a prison or somewhere where, maybe either an alien race or a specific race of beings are using it as a prison to keep the worst of the worst?
Yeah. Like it's kind of funny because it's obviously the caverns and under anything there were entrances leading to the underworld. And usually, when you call something the underworld, that refers to hell, especially on Earth, is what I would say. And yeah, like I think the biggest one is thing is too is obviously they have a bunch of different places where they've called these different places to um, obviously Hollow Earth, like Ireland's Gate of Hell, and other places that are like the Seven Gates of Hell. So there obviously are different places where you can enter, but obviously when you really think about it, is this, going towards that kind of um, you know, biblical sort of sense, and you hear like even with the whole story with what was her name? She had the snake hair. She was Egyptian. I just can't remember her
Medusa.
name. Medusa, right? She tried to go down to these 7 gates, sort of thing, and she apparently went through. I didn't read the whole thing about it, but I am guessing obviously this is obviously an underworld to hell. But it also makes sense too because, the farther you go down our into our crust, the hotter it's gonna get because of the core, right? But that
Yes.
also makes you think that could also be, you know, a sun to another whole population that's opposite of what we are. And, there's obviously been people that have been down there and said they've seen these things. So it just makes me think, what kind of hell is down there if it's a whole place where, different creatures are living and uh, obviously not living like we are, sort of thing. I've been told there's been stories of these people or these species down there that don't like the wars up on our planet, and they stop a lot of them apparently. So it makes me think: are these the ones that actually are part of our planet but are protecting it at the same time?
Protecting our planet from the inside.
Right?
I mean,
I don't know.
if you think about the concept of there being a hollow Earth too, and then you marry that up with the hollow moon theory, could it potentially be the same race that is in the moon that is also in the interior of the Earth?
I thought about that, and that's when we were discussing that topic last episode. That's basically what after we talked about it, I kind of went, "Wow, that makes total sense," because you need a base to be able to live for the rest of your time. And if you've traveled in a moon, let's say million like light, or I don't know, maybe 20 light years away, you're not going back anytime soon. So you want to be able to in the population of that moon, if there's anybody up in that moon, would be a lot. That moon's been here for how many decades, so it kind of makes me think that obviously a population would have to get off of that moon and populate somewhere on our planet, and I'm guessing underneath our planet would be the best bet, so they're not getting in our way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, even with that and the Black Knight satellite, you got 3 things that are all seemingly connected, and I didn't really think of it until we brought all these topics up, but it is basically connected at some point. Now, it's just a theory, obviously, but I just mean, like, you can't really deny the fact that, hey, we got 3 different things here, and there's possibilities that all of these different things are working together.
So, in your
Have you
mind, knowing what you know about Hollow Earth theory and all the things that we've discussed, what do you think is sort of the most compelling evidence that Hollow Earth theory is actually accurate?
um, that's a good one. I really don't have much. Just like I could speculate all I want in that sense, but I think the biggest thing is, I guess in that sense, the guys that, well, found Hollow Earth in that sense. Like, I mean, with these 2 guys, trying to find Hollow Earth and that, or not, I don't even know how they even figured out how they could have even known about why this would exist in that sense. But Bird, the pilot that went over, and he did 2 other um investigations on the South Pole to go back to this place. Now, when he went there, when he came back, the thing about intrigued me most about it is that the way he described everything. Now, for me, talking about the dinosaurs, talking about the vegetation, the city of I think it was Light or something like that, or Crystal. Um, there's another guy, like I was explaining with this Billy guy. He said the exact same thing, okay? And it tripped me out because of the way they both described it, but they were both from different times. So, and yeah, maybe this other guy heard a bit about this other guy's story and maybe exaggerated it a bit, but the way they described it both was exact. And for me, I believe that, there's got to be something other to, other than what we really know. And honestly, there's gotta be something going on down below us that we don't know, because there's even other aspects of it that, I'm not gonna talk about because I don't wanna ruin other episodes later on, but I mean, there's so many other things out there that are possible and all could connect with Hollow Earth, and I believe someday, we have only discovered 5% of our oceans. So who's to say what's below that, you know what I mean? I mean, below the depths of the oceans that we can't explore yet.
And Hollow Earth, with the idea that the entrances are at the north and south poles, there are also places around the world that talk about being connected to the underworld, essentially. I know
Yes.
for a fact that there's one in Australia, it's called Black Mountain, and it seems like just a big jumble of rocks that have been, piled up. But
Yeah.
there are stories of even again reptilian-like creatures coming out and actually taking people and taking them down into the underworld. And the interesting thing about the way this mountain sits is it's essentially a pile of boulders. And we've had people that have tried to get down into the crevices and they've gone through the passages and all these things that these boulders create. And they've had
Yeah.
themselves attached to ropes and things like that so that they don't get lost, but they've never been able to find any sort of end to it. So it just keeps going down and down and down. What do you think about
Uh,
that?
I do believe believe that. Yeah, as you were just talking about Australia with that mountain. That's not the only place. I know there's a few other places. I just don't know exactly where they are. I know they're in jungled areas, but there was a guy hitchhiking, or not hitchhiking, sorry, rock climbing or something. He was doing some sort of thing in the jungle there, and was basically um like some guy just showed up out of nowhere, but he wasn't wearing any. He was like wearing a robe, is what he described, and basically asked him if he would like to come to Hollow Earth, and the guy basically was like, "Okay," and ended up going with him, and when they got to this rock face, it looked like a solid rock, okay? Like, that's what this guy described, but when the guy said, "All you have to do is walk through." And the guy's like, "What? I don't understand what you're saying." So, so buddy showed him. So he went through this doorway and this other guy just kind of went, "What?" He didn't understand. So he ended up walking through it and was just beyond amazed about it. So, but he said it took them a long time to walk down this huge, it was a tunnel of tunnels. And he said it was unbelievably, it took them forever to get there, but when they finally did get there, everything started to open up and it was just vegetation. There was mountains, and when he happened to look up, it was like the core of our planet, which would be their sun, I guess, was bright in the sky. Like, well, I guess it wasn't really a sky, but it was more like you're looking up and you see other continents and I guess water, over above you. So, to me, I believe that yes, there's probably dozens of different places, and that's for me is a big thing because I like exploring things and but Hollow Earth is a big one for me. I don't even have any big money to go on a big, huge adventure like that, but it would be awesome to to find one of these openings and try to see what's going on because this is one I feel is more to our more to our zone in that sense. It's not out in space, sort of thing. It's right here where we can all investigate it, and it's just kind of sad that a lot of people aren't.
Makes me wonder though. I mean, the description of him entering through essentially what is a solid stone wall indicates to
Yeah,
me that there's some sort of stealth or cloaking technology that's being used to uh, make this rock wall look as if it's real. But then again, as well, it wouldn't be a very good entrance if anyone could just walk through it by accident. So, I mean, you'd think that if it was some sort of technology, it was some sort of shield technology with some sort of cloaking ability.
yeah. And that kinda right there brings up, like, the whole thing with the Agartha. Like, they're a race down there too, but they're a very advanced race. Now, stories I've heard about, people being in the Hollow Earth is seeing, these floating devices. Basically, you step on them and a railing raises up, and it floats them to different destinations in Hollow Earth. So that made me kinda go, "Wow, you got more better technology than we have in our stage of life." And, that kinda makes sense because, the best way to hide yourself would be to have these, extra technologies like, um, the fake walls and stuff or like, sort of fake portal sort of thing so you would never know it was there. And honestly, it's kinda goes in with ties in with a whole bunch of other places like, Skinwalker Ranch has obviously got a huge portal there, and it makes me think that obviously some things that flying through there. So I believe that these are openings too. We just can't tap into it. We just don't have the technology to tap into these either portals or these fake mountains that they're making us believe that they're real. So, to me, that would be the smartest way to conceal themselves from having anybody actually investigate it more because I believe there's a reason why it gets so much hotter as we go down and obviously the core, but maybe that's a defense system in itself so that we stop and can't go any further, you know?
Also, if you've got some sort of race of creatures or aliens down there that have sort of a different, I don't know, a different genetic makeup as us, they may necessarily need, different environments to live in. So maybe hotter for them is better. Especially if we're
Yeah,
thinking about if you have something like again, I keep going back to a reptilian sort of race. If they were in
yeah,
fact, say, a cold-blooded race, having a warm environment would help keep them active and moving.
yeah, true. And that also brings up maybe there's um different levels of Hollow Earth, that we just don't know about. Like we only know about the one, but there could be different levels of layers, Like we see one dimension or two dimension, maybe they see three or four, but maybe our Earth is layered like a bunch of different, different. Earths underneath it,
A bunch
and you
of
have
babushka dolls.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, technically, in that sense, I almost feel like maybe there's a reason, all these different species obviously maybe some of these species are not meant to be near each other. They're probably at war. You never know, and they just keep to themselves in that sense and have their own little nook of Earth to live out their whatever they're doing here, sort of thing. So, that kind of goes into that aspect too. Is how they would live down there all together. Obviously, with us and being on our planet, we all have to live together in that sense. So it's probably in that same regards. They all obey one rule or law or something like that, is what I'm guessing anyway.
And I've also read that there are people that have stated that giants live down in Hollow Earth. And I mean, there are references to giants on the surface of the Earth and giant races of people. Supposedly, the Smithsonian has evidence of giants that they've kept hidden for decades. What do you feel about that aspect?
Well, I know the first thing is supposedly we chased the giants away, and I believe what they did was they went underground. They said, "Screw you guys." I know there was a lot of I don't know, it was like anger towards these giants, and I think our human race kind of turned against them. There's a few stories I've seen of the same thing where we've turned against different races trying to help us. And giants makes total sense, to what we've done in architecture and stuff like that over the years or decades, generations. Um, so yeah, there's obviously evidence of giants being around. They found bigger skulls, you know, footprints. These things are evidence that hey, there's something that was here and now is not. And to get away from us being the, you know, violent species we are, I guess, in that sense. They probably said, "You know what? We're not gonna do this anymore," and they went underground. Now, and I can believe that's possible because there is huge caves. These giants could have just, crawled into them and did went into Hollow Earth in that sense and are living there now. Because there's, now that there's no evidence of anything even being on our planet nowadays, it makes sense that the only place they could go was either space or underground. And to me, a giant going into space with a huge ship just doesn't really, which could be possible. I'm not going to say it's not, but I believe it more of the fact that they went down underground to escape us or what was going to happen, decades or generations later.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Also, just as a little bit of a segue, and it sort of leads from the giants sort of idea, because there is a lot of speculation around the whole idea of giants as well. There is
Yeah.
also, like, say, for instance, we thought, say, dinosaurs and humans were separated by millions of years, right? So, that was pretty well fact for a very long time. Yet there has been fairly recent discoveries of dinosaur footprints next to human footprints, and these are fossilized.
Yes. Yep.
So, with that in mind, the idea that a large race of beings or giants did in fact live on the earth is not that far fetched, in as much as, we may have covered it up at some point, but it's there's too many stories and too many pseudo facts that should basically lean towards that as being the truth.
Well, in that sense too, right? And with that evidence being out there, um, and the stories of other people saying they've seen mammoths, down in Hollow Earth. So what makes me think maybe some of these animals or the species that are living or some of the races down there, thought, "Hey, we got to take some of these other species off the top of the planet and bring them down here." Maybe it was for biblical reasons. Maybe that's the whole reason why we say, Jesus brought 3 animal onto the ark sort of thing. Maybe it's that story, but they took them down underneath to save them, you know? And maybe they do have, T-Rexes and stuff down there, and they all live in harmony. Like, I don't know, there's a lot of stories about dinosaurs too not being as vicious as they are sought out to be. Like, the movie Jurassic Park, they made them sound like they were very vicious. But it sounds like, the T-Rex wasn't really that bad of a dinosaur, But I honestly, I would never get near one, so in that aspect, I'm not gonna even get into that, but I mean, like, how do we know Hollow Earth has a different atmosphere for these animals and stuff? And supposedly there's like healing properties down there that are unbelievable. They can basically clean you of your intoxicated bodies up here on our planet, sort of thing, and heal anything in your body. They don't eat meat down there either, supposedly. So, like, there's a lot of things that kind of go in with the aspect of how they're adapting to being underground.
So that also could be sort of some sort of origin for the stories for the Fountain of Youth, I guess.
Yes, yeah, true.
All right. Another thing that I'd like to touch on with the Hollow Earth theory is political and social implications. If we actually found out that definitively that Hollow Earth was true, that there was some sort of race of other creatures or aliens living down there, how do you think that would affect the population today?
Well, I'm selling my house and trying to pay for one down there. No. Um yeah, that's quite the game changer. Honestly, if I were to find out, or anybody I know would find out, that there's a whole different race of, or a whole different continents of, land underneath us, and there's people walking underneath us, that I think that would, shock a lot of people. Like, I mean, you're not gonna have a lot of people that are gonna be too happy, like, wow, this whole, but there's probably gonna be a lot of theorists and people out there that are just gonna be in awe because they're gonna be like, yeah, we were right. But I honestly think that if we were really that part of a race ourselves, that we would sit back and take, you know, their knowledge, maybe start changing our ways, because maybe these people are down there for a reason. And for us up here, I think the only way that these people would ever communicate with us to combine uh our living space in that sense, there's going to have to become some sort of, there's no need for a president, there's no need for certain things. Even government wouldn't really need to exist. I think the way that they're doing it underneath us is probably a lot more peaceful in that sense. And I think for us to amalgamate with them, we'd have to change a lot of our own ideas, our own thoughts and stuff, because there's a lot of things that we don't know about them. But obviously, if they had the technology to, you know, have advancements that are way better than ours, we could learn from them. And I think for us to, turn around and get aggressive would, that would be devastating for everybody, I think, in that fact. And even so, what's that gonna accomplish, I think the best thing to do is, if we ever had communication or we had to live together, would be to work together and hopefully, you know, be advanced enough where we can actually, find more answers about what's going on with around us. Maybe they have the answers and we just don't know anything about what's going on at this point, but we're close, I guess.
Oh, yes, I'm not sure we're close. I think the world's got a long way to go before it's close to anything that may be construed as peaceful. I think
Yeah,
a lot of people around the world would just deny that the truth, if it
I
had
think
come
that's
out, was be there.
right. I think that's exactly what I think. A lot of people just won't accept that this is happening. Like, now we're talking about UFOs and stuff finally, and a lot of people are still not really accepting of that. But you really can't dispute evidence in that sense. And like you can dispute people that can make up stories and stuff. I get that. But when you see somebody that's legitly telling this story and I can see it in his face, it makes me believe that, there is something down there and not a lot of people are. I've been, even there's stories of them not letting humans down there because of what we do up here, So the lucky people that do get to go down there and have this experience, I feel like probably 5% of these people are genuine and know there is something going on.
If you had the experience where you were allowed to go down into to Hollow Earth, I mean, why would you return if it's such a
Well, as the
peaceful
one
and
guy
amazing
said,
place?
they only give you so long. You're only allowed to be there for like 6 of our months. They don't have, I guess in that sense, in Hollow Earth doesn't even have months. They don't really have time. So they live. I don't even know how. I don't know. That's the whole that's the whole thing I'm trying to say. It's beyond human. You know, it's just beyond us to see how they're actually living. And when this guy said he was down there, he said time doesn't even exist. You don't really like they sleep and stuff. Some of them don't. I don't know if that's how true most of this is, but I do believe that, for him being down there, his time felt like it was longer than what they told him. And they told him that you can only stay down there for so long because one, humans are not meant to be down there. That's I don't know if that's believable or not, but maybe it's because of the way gravity is, or maybe we're not supposed to be that close to the core of the Earth in that sense.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to
Yep.
wrap up the discussion because we're starting to get close to time. So, are there any final thoughts or closing statements that you would like to make in regards to Hollow Earth theory?
I think the biggest thing is, if a lot of people are listening, is a lot of it is open minded, and I think keeping an open mind to this kind of thing is, it's it's something that could possibly be there, and I think a lot of people realize that this is something that could be found later on, and who knows, maybe we could crack the whole code of our life under our planet.
Yes, the meaning of life on Earth is somewhere in the center of the Earth.
Yep.
All right, that is it from us at the Grey Line podcast today. We could actually talk about Hollow Earth theory a lot more than we have. I think there is a lot of information that we haven't even touched on in regards to Hollow Earth theory, so this may have to be a topic that we continue at a later date. But thank you very much all for joining us today. I again apologize for the delay, and me having a migraine today has kept me quite quiet. But future episodes should be back on track. So until then, we will see you all next time.
Hi, I'm Riley, and this is the Gray Line Podcast.